Let me start with a truth most people learn too late. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. The busiest person is rarely the most effective. And the most visible person is rarely the most fulfilled. As we step into 2026, the world would reward one kind of person above all others, the one who knows how to focus and knows when to stay silent. This is not about disappearing. This is about becoming undeniable. We've been taught, almost subconsciously, that speaking up equals confidence, that the more visible you are, the more valuable you must be. That if you're not constantly sharing your thoughts, posting your progress, explaining your intentions, you'll somehow disappear. The world reinforces this idea every day. Social platforms reward noise. Meetings reward the loudest voice. Attention often goes to the person who speaks first, not the one who thinks deepest. And over time, we start believing that silence is a risk, that quiet means weakness, that if we don't announce who we are and what we're doing, we'll be overlooked. But that belief is one of the most dangerous myths of our time. Because when you look closely at the people who truly changed industries, cultures, or history, a different pattern appears. They didn't announce every move. They didn't explain every idea before it was ready. They didn't seek validation while they were still building. They worked quietly while everyone else was busy talking. They understood something most people miss: real power doesn't need constant confirmation. Think about it. The most impactful decisions are rarely made in crowded rooms filled with noise. They're made in silence, in moments of reflection, in spaces where there's room to think clearly, without distraction, without pressure to perform. Silence creates that space. Silence gives you the distance you need to see what others can't, because they're too busy reacting to what's loud. Athletes understand this better than almost anyone. Championships are not won in interviews, highlight reels, or motivational speeches in the locker room. They're won early in the morning when no cameras are present. They're won late at night when the stadium lights are off. They're won through repetition, discipline, and boring consistency. The public sees the medal. They don't see the thousands of silent hours that made it inevitable. The same is true in business, in leadership, in personal growth. The people who build something meaningful don't broadcast every step. They protect their process. They know that early exposure can invite unnecessary opinions, doubts, and distractions. A fragile idea, like a fragile seed, needs protection. Too much light too soon doesn't help it grow. It destroys it. In 2026, silence will not be about hiding. It will be about protecting your energy. Every conversation costs something. Every explanation drains a little focus. Every argument pulls you away from what actually matters. When you stay silent, you choose where your energy goes. You stop spending it on proving yourself and start investing it in becoming better. Silence also prevents unnecessary conflict. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding needs clarification. Most battles people fight daily don't move their lives forward at all. They only leave them emotionally exhausted. Silence allows you to step back and ask a more important question: does this actually matter in the long run? Often the answer is no. And when you don't engage, you don't lose. You win time, clarity, and peace. There's also a deeper strength in silence that many people overlook. Silence keeps your plans safe while they are still fragile. The moment you speak a goal out loud, it becomes public property. Everyone has an opinion. Some will doubt you. Some will project their own fears onto your vision. Even well-meaning people can weaken your confidence without realizing it. Silence gives your plans time to grow roots before they face storms. History is full of examples. The most disruptive companies didn't announce their strategy years in advance. The most effective leaders didn't reveal every intention. They moved quietly, observed carefully, and acted decisively. By the time the world noticed, the foundation was already too strong to shake. There's also something psychologically powerful about silence. When you don't constantly explain yourself, you build inner certainty. You stop outsourcing your confidence to other people's reactions. You begin to trust your own judgment. That kind of confidence doesn't need applause. It doesn't crumble under criticism. It's steady, grounded, and resilient. Silence trains patience, and patience is a strategic advantage. In a world addicted to instant feedback, the ability to wait is rare. When you can hold your plans without needing immediate validation, you develop emotional strength. You become less reactive, less impulsive, more intentional. You stop chasing approval and start chasing alignment. Consider how often people speak out of insecurity rather than clarity. They over-explain because they're unsure. They argue because they feel threatened. They post constantly because they fear being forgotten. Silence breaks that cycle. It forces you to confront yourself, to sit with uncertainty, to refine your thinking before you act. That discomfort is where growth happens. Silence also sharpens your listening. When you're not focused on speaking, you start noticing patterns. You hear what others miss. You learn faster. Leaders who listen more than they speak make better decisions because they're not blinded by their own voice. They understand that information flows to those who create space for it. In 2026, the ability to remain silent will be misunderstood by many. Some will mistake it for weakness. Some will assume you have nothing to say. Let them. The strongest people don't rush to correct misconceptions. They let time and results do that work for them. Silence allows you to stay focused while others are distracted by appearances. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're building something real. You don't need to announce it because you can feel it. You don't need to defend it because it's rooted in action. Every silent step forward reinforces your belief in yourself. And that belief compounds. Silence is not absence. It's not disengagement. It's not fear. Silence is preparation. It's the space where ideas mature. It's the pause before precision. It's the calm before momentum. When you choose silence intentionally, you're not stepping back from life. You're stepping deeper into it with purpose, clarity, and strength. And when the time comes to speak, when the moment is right, your words will carry weight. Not because they are loud, but because they are backed by quiet work, consistent effort, and unshakable intent. We live in a distracted world, and most of us don't even realize how deep it goes. Notifications never stop. Screens constantly light up. Messages demand immediate replies. Opinions flood every space we enter. Everyone wants your attention because attention is power, and the moment you give it away, you lose control over where your energy goes. Over time, this constant pull fractures your thinking. You start reacting instead of choosing. You start moving, but not necessarily moving forward. In this environment, focus has become rare. And when something becomes rare, it becomes valuable. Focus is choosing one direction while ignoring 1,000 others. It's deciding that not every opportunity is meant for you, not every trend deserves your participation, and not every voice needs a response. Most people confuse movement with progress. They stay busy jumping from task to task, idea to idea, thinking that speed equals success. But motion without direction only leads to exhaustion. Real success doesn't come from doing more things. It comes from doing the right things consistently. That consistency is impossible without focus. You can't build something meaningful when your attention is scattered across 10 priorities. Every time you switch tasks, your brain pays a cost. Research from Stanford showed that multitasking can reduce productivity by up to 40%, yet we celebrate it. We praise people for being always on, for juggling everything at once, for being endlessly available. What we don't see is the silent damage, shallow thinking, burnout, and work that never reaches its full potential. Business has become a badge of honor. People say they're busy as if it's proof of importance. But busy doesn't mean effective. Busy often means unfocused. It means saying yes too often and no too rarely. It means letting other people's priorities dictate your day. Focus, on the other hand, demands courage. It forces you to disappoint people. It forces you to walk away from good opportunities so you can protect great ones. Look at anyone who has mastered their craft: artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, scientists. They all share one thing in common: an almost ruthless commitment to focus. They don't chase everything, they commit deeply to one thing for a long time. They understand that excellence is not built through scattered effort, but through sustained attention. In a distracted world, focus becomes a competitive advantage because it allows depth. And depth is where real value lies. Shallow work is easy to replicate. Deep work is not. Anyone can skim the surface. Very few are willing to go beneath it. When you focus, you think better. You solve harder problems. You produce work that stands out not because it's louder, but because it's better. In 2026, the people who win won't be the ones doing everything. They'll be the ones who decided what matters and said no to the rest. They'll be the ones who structured their days around priorities instead of interruptions. While others are reacting to every alert, they'll be building something that compounds over time. Focus also changes how you experience life. When your attention is divided, nothing feels fulfilling. You're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. When you focus, even simple tasks become meaningful. You're present, you're engaged. You start to feel progress instead of pressure. Focus restores a sense of control in a world that constantly pulls you in different directions. There's also a personal cost to distraction that rarely gets discussed. When you're always switching attention, you never give yourself time to think deeply about who you are and where you're going. Your goals become blurry. Your decisions become reactive. Focus brings clarity because it forces you to choose, and choosing creates identity. What you focus on repeatedly is what you become. Focus is not about discipline in the way most people think. It's not about forcing yourself through sheer willpower. It's about clarity. When you're clear on what matters, focus becomes natural. You don't need motivation to ignore distractions when you know exactly why you're saying no. Clarity eliminates hesitation. It turns focus from a struggle into a strategy. Think about how many people feel overwhelmed not because they have too much to do, but because they don't know what truly matters. Everything feels urgent when nothing is prioritized. Focus cuts through that noise. It brings order. It tells you where to put your best energy and where to withhold it. In practical terms, focus means designing your environment to support your intentions. It means reducing unnecessary inputs, fewer notifications, fewer commitments, fewer conversations that don't move you forward. It means protecting blocks of uninterrupted time, because that's where meaningful progress happens. Most breakthroughs don't happen in 5-minute windows between distractions. They happen when attention is sustained long enough for ideas to connect. There's a quiet confidence that comes from focus. When you know what you're working toward, you stop comparing yourself to others. Their pace doesn't matter. Their path doesn't distract you. You're no longer anxious about missing out because you're too engaged in building something that matters to you. Focus replaces fear with purpose. 2026 approaches, the world will only become louder, faster, more demanding. The temptation to divide your attention will increase. And that's exactly why focus will matter more than ever. Those who can maintain it will think clearer, move with intention, and build results that last. Focus is not restriction, it's freedom. Freedom from noise, freedom from comparison, freedom from the constant pull of things that don't serve your direction. When you choose focus, you're not limiting your potential. You're finally giving it the space it needs to grow. One of the biggest mistakes people make is explaining their dreams to the wrong audience. It usually doesn't come from arrogance or carelessness. It comes from excitement. When an idea is new, when a vision feels alive, there's a natural urge to share it, to say it out loud, to make it real by letting other people hear it. We assume that if it matters to us, it will matter to them. But that assumption often leads to disappointment, confusion, and self-doubt. Not everyone will understand your direction, and that doesn't make them wrong, it makes them human. People interpret your vision through the lens of their own experiences, fears, and limitations. If they've never taken the kind of risk you're taking, they won't feel what you feel. If they've been conditioned to play safe, they may see your ambition as unrealistic. If they've failed before, they might project their disappointment onto your future. Not everyone needs to know your next move. Privacy is not secrecy, it's strategy. When you announce something before it's built, you invite opinions before there's evidence. Some people listen to respond, already preparing advice you didn't ask for. Some listen to judge, measuring your dreams against their own standards. Some listen to discourage, not because they want to hurt you, but because they believe they're protecting you. They'll say things like, be realistic, or what if it doesn't work? Without realizing that doubt, once planted, grows quickly. Words have weight, especially when they come from people close to us. A casual comment can linger in your mind for years. A raised eyebrow can create hesitation where there was once certainty. That's why access to your vision should be earned, not given freely. Your dreams are not public property. They are fragile in the early stages, and fragile things need protection. There's a reason seeds grow underground. Before anything breaks the surface, it develops roots in darkness. No applause, no validation, no proof that it will ever become something visible. If you dig it up too soon to show someone, you interrupt the process. Exposure too early doesn't accelerate growth, it can kill it. The same principle applies to your ideas, your plans, your personal evolution. Some things need time before they can survive scrutiny. In 2026, guarding your vision will be an act of self-respect. It means understanding that not every conversation deserves honesty at the deepest level. It means choosing silence over explanation, not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you stop leaking energy, you stop defending things that don't need defense. Yet think about how often people talk about what they're going to do instead of doing it. There's a psychological effect where speaking about a goal creates a temporary feeling of accomplishment. The brain receives a sense of progress without real action. That false satisfaction can slow execution. When you stay quiet, all that energy has one place to go: into the work. Sharing progress should be intentional. There are people who have earned the right to hear your vision because they've proven they want to see you win. They don't compete with you. They don't minimize your ambition. They challenge you in ways that sharpen, not weaken your resolve. These people are rare, and because they are rare, their opinions matter. Everyone else's noise. Let results speak where words once tried to convince. Results don't need explanation. They don't argue. They don't ask for approval. When something is real, it's obvious. When progress is visible, it answers questions without you saying a word. The people who doubted you won't need convincing. The people who judged you won't need clarification. The work will speak for itself. There's also a freedom that comes from not explaining yourself. When you don't owe updates to everyone, you move at your own pace. You're not pressured to perform progress. You're not rushing milestones just to prove something. You give yourself permission to be imperfect, to adjust, to learn quietly. That freedom is essential for long-term success. You don't owe everyone an explanation. That idea can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to seeking approval or avoiding conflict. But over time, it becomes empowering. You realize that your responsibility is not to make everyone comfortable with your choices. Your responsibility is to execute on the life you believe in. Execution requires focus, consistency, and resilience. All three are weakened when your vision is constantly exposed to outside opinions. When you guard it, you strengthen it, you allow it to mature. You give it a chance to become something solid enough to stand on its own. In a world where everyone is sharing everything, privacy becomes power. The ability to work in silence, to move without announcing every step, to build without broadcasting the blueprint, creates an edge. While others are explaining, you're building. While others are defending, you're refining. While others are talking, you're becoming. When the time comes to reveal what you've been working on, it won't need hype. It won't need justification. It will simply exist, strong enough to speak for itself. And in that moment, you'll realize that guarding your vision was never about hiding. It was about honoring it. We admire overnight success stories, even though deep down we know they are rarely overnight. We see the moment someone breaks through, the promotion, the launch, the recognition, the transformation, and it looks sudden. It looks effortless. What we don't see is the long season that came before it. The season where nothing looked impressive, the season where effort didn't match applause, the season where progress was real but invisible. Every meaningful breakthrough is preceded by a stretch of quiet work. A stretch where there are no headlines, no encouragement, and often no external proof that what you're doing even matters. This is the phase most people quit, not because they lack ability, but because they lack patience. They confuse silence with stagnation. They assume that if nothing is visible, nothing is happening. But growth doesn't ask to be seen while it's forming. It asks to be protected. Think about how nature works. A caterpillar doesn't announce it's becoming a butterfly. There's no warning, no countdown, no explanation. It withdraws, goes quiet. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. In reality, everything is happening. Its entire structure is reorganizing. The transformation is so deep that when it finally emerges, it cannot go back to what it was. No explanation is necessary because the result speaks clearly. Human growth works the same way. The most important changes in your life won't be loud. They won't come with instant validation. They'll happen internally in moments no one else notices, habits changing quietly, a mindset strengthening one decision at a time, discipline becoming automatic instead of forced, confidence growing not from applause, but from keeping promises to yourself. This kind of growth feels slow. Sometimes it feels invisible. You're showing up, doing the work, making better choices, and yet nothing dramatic seems to happen. That's where doubt creeps in. You start wondering if you're wasting your time, if you should switch directions, if everyone else is somehow moving faster than you. What you don't realize is that quiet growth is often the most permanent kind. Visible success can disappear as fast as it appears if it isn't supported by internal strength. Quiet growth builds a foundation. It strengthens your identity before it changes your circumstances. It prepares you to handle success without being consumed by it. That preparation is what separates people who sustain growth from those who collapse under it. Look at anyone who has mastered something difficult. They didn't start out extraordinary. They started out consistent. They practiced when no one was watching. They failed privately. They adjusted quietly. Their progress was not designed for an audience. It was designed for improvement. By the time the world noticed, they were already years ahead of the version of themselves that once doubted everything. There's also a psychological shift that happens during quiet growth. You stop relying on external motivation. You begin to trust your process. You learn to find satisfaction in effort itself, not just in outcomes. That shift is powerful because it makes you resilient. When setbacks happen, you don't collapse because your identity isn't tied to immediate results. It's tied to who you're becoming. In your own life, the habits that will matter most are often the least glamorous. Reading when no one praises you for it, training when no one sees the progress yet, choosing restraint when impulsive behavior would feel easier. These choices don't create instant highlights, but they shape your future in ways that are impossible to reverse once they compound. Quiet growth also teaches humility. When you've spent a long time working without recognition, you don't become entitled when success arrives. You stay grounded. You remember the process. You respect the effort behind achievement, both in yourself and in others. That humility becomes a strength, not a weakness. In 2026, trusting the quiet work will be essential because the world will continue to reward noise. There will be constant pressure to perform, to show, to prove. But the people who last will be the ones who resist that pressure. They'll understand that not everything valuable needs to be visible immediately. Some things need time, some things need silence. There's a moment in every growth journey where things begin to change on the inside before the outside catches up. Your reactions soften, your discipline strengthens. Your self-talk becomes more constructive. You stop seeking permission. These changes are subtle, but they're significant. They indicate that you're no longer building for attention. You're building for alignment. When growth finally becomes visible, it often feels sudden to everyone else. People will say you got lucky. They'll say it happened fast. They won't see the years of quiet preparation, and you won't feel the need to explain it because you'll know what it cost. You'll know how many days you showed up without feedback, how many nights you kept going without certainty. By the time growth becomes visible, it's already too strong to stop. It's reinforced by habits, mindset, and identity. It's not dependent on external conditions anymore. That's the power of quiet work. It doesn't just change what you have. It changes who you are. And once that happens, progress is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you carry with you wherever you go. Not every emotion needs an audience. Not every emotion needs a reaction. And not every criticism deserves a response. Yet we live in a world that constantly encourages the opposite. We are pushed to share instantly, react immediately, and defend ourselves publicly. Silence is often framed as weakness, as if choosing not to respond means you've lost. But in reality, silence is often the healthiest response you can choose. Research consistently shows that constant exposure to opinions, comparisons, and digital noise increases anxiety and self-doubt. When you are always consuming other people's thoughts, you slowly lose touch with your own. You begin measuring yourself against standards that were never meant for you. You start questioning decisions that once felt clear. Mental health doesn't usually collapse in one dramatic moment. It erodes quietly through overstimulation, over-explanation, and emotional overload. The more you explain yourself, the more power you give away. Every explanation invites judgment. Every defense invites debate. And every reaction ties your emotional state to someone else's words. Over time, this creates a fragile sense of self, one that depends on how well you are understood, approved of, or validated by others. That is an exhausting way to live. Silence interrupts that cycle. Silence gives you space to think clearly. When you pause instead of reacting, you allow your nervous system to settle. You create distance between the trigger and your response. That distance is powerful. It's where perspective lives. It's where wisdom replaces impulse. It's where you stop being controlled by every external stimulus. Think about how often arguments escalate not because of the issue itself, but because of how quickly people react. Words are exchanged before emotions are understood. Assumptions are made before facts are clear. Silence slows everything down. It gives you the ability to choose peace over proving a point. And choosing peace is not avoidance, it's discernment. There's a misconception that strong people always speak up. In reality, strong people know when speaking will help and when it will harm. They understand that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every opinion deserves space in their mind. Silence becomes a filter. It protects your mental energy from being drained by things that don't contribute to your growth. Mental health is closely tied to boundaries, and silence is one of the strongest boundaries you can set. When you don't react to everything, you teach people how to treat you. You show that your peace is not easily disrupted. You signal that access to your emotions is not automatic. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you stable. In a world where outrage is rewarded and reactions are amplified, staying silent can feel uncomfortable. There's pressure to comment, to respond, to defend your position. But clarity rarely comes from noise, it comes from reflection. When you allow yourself to sit with your thoughts privately, you begin to understand them better. You separate what truly matters from what merely feels urgent. Comparison is another silent threat to mental health. Constantly seeing curated versions of other people's lives distorts reality. You compare your behind the scenes with someone else's highlights and conclude that you're falling behind. Silence, especially digital silence, reduces that exposure. It gives your mind room to recalibrate. You start measuring progress against your own values instead of someone else's timeline. Silence also helps regulate emotions. When you react immediately, emotions lead. When you pause, logic has time to catch up. This doesn't mean suppressing feelings, it means processing them internally before expressing them externally. Emotional intelligence grows in silence. You learn to name what you feel, understand why you feel it, and decide what to do with it. That process protects you from regretful words and unnecessary stress. In 2026, mental clarity will be worth more than public validation. Validation is temporary, it fades quickly and often demands more in return. Clarity lasts, it guides decisions, it shapes behavior, it creates consistency. When your mind is clear, you don't need constant reassurance. You trust yourself, and that trust becomes a source of calm strength. You don't need to win every argument. Winning arguments rarely improves your life. It rarely changes minds. It often costs peace, relationships, and time. Inner stability, on the other hand, improves everything. When you are emotionally grounded, challenges feel manageable. Criticism doesn't define you. Praise doesn't inflate you. You remain centered regardless of external noise. Silence also allows healing. Some experiences need time, not commentary. Talking too soon can reopen wounds that haven't healed yet. Silence gives pain space to soften. It allows lessons to form without pressure. Healing is rarely loud. It's quiet, gradual, and deeply personal. There's a strength in knowing that you don't have to respond to everything to be okay, that you can let comments pass without internalizing them, that you can disagree without engaging, that you can be misunderstood and still at peace. This kind of strength isn't obvious, but it's transformative. Staying silent doesn't mean you never speak. It means you speak with intention. When you do choose to speak, your words carry more weight because they aren't diluted by constant reaction. People listen more closely when they know you don't speak carelessly. Silence sharpens your voice. Mental health is not protected by doing more, saying more, or explaining more. It's protected by knowing when to stop, when to pause, when to disconnect. Silence creates that pause. It reminds you that you are allowed to exist without performing, defending, or justifying yourself. As the world grows louder, silence becomes a refuge. Not a retreat from responsibility, but a return to balance. In choosing silence, you choose clarity. In choosing clarity, you choose stability. And stability is what allows you to move forward with confidence, calm, and control. The most powerful statement you can make is progress, not promises, not explanations, not declarations about what you're going to do someday. Progress speaks in a language that doesn't need translation. It doesn't argue. It doesn't defend itself. It simply exists undeniable and visible to anyone paying attention. When you focus deeply and stay silent long enough, something begins to shift inside you. At first, it's subtle. Doubt starts to fade, not because you forced it away, but because action slowly replaces uncertainty. Confidence begins to grow, not from praise, but from repetition, from showing up again and again, even when no one is watching. And over time, momentum becomes natural. What once required effort starts to feel automatic. This is how real transformation happens. Quietly, gradually, without announcement. Most people try to convince the world before they convince themselves. They talk about their goals, their plans, their intentions, hoping that saying it out loud will make it real. But words without results create pressure. They create expectation, and expectation, when unmet, turns into doubt, both in others and in yourself. Silence removes that pressure. It allows you to work without performing, to improve without being evaluated, to grow without being rushed. There's a moment in every journey where people who once questioned you start to notice something different. They don't always say it right away. They observe, they compare who you were to who you are now. And eventually, the questions change. Instead of, why are you doing this? They ask, how did you do it? Not because you explained it, but because they can see it. Results have a way of rewriting narratives. They turn skepticism into curiosity. They turn doubt into respect. And they do it without you saying a word. That's the power of letting your work speak for you. When progress is visible, explanations become unnecessary. In 2026, don't announce your transformation. Demonstrate it. Announcements invite opinions. Demonstrations command attention. Anyone can talk about discipline. Very few live it consistently. Anyone can describe change. Very few embody it over time. The difference is not talent, it's commitment. Let your discipline be loud. Discipline is built in small choices repeated daily. Choosing to do what matters when motivation fades. Choosing consistency over intensity. Choosing long-term growth over short-term validation. Discipline doesn't need an audience, it needs structure. And when it's practiced quietly, it becomes unbreakable. Let your consistency speak. Consistency is what turns effort into identity. When you do something once, it's an action. When you do it repeatedly, it becomes who you are. People trust consistency because it's predictable, it's reliable, it's proof that your success isn't accidental. Consistency builds credibility without explanation. Let your results explain everything you never said. There will be moments when you're misunderstood, times when people assume you failed, quit, or lost direction because you went quiet. Let them. Silence doesn't slow progress, distraction does. While others are busy maintaining appearances, you're building substance. And substance always lasts longer. There's also something deeply personal about earning your confidence through results. When you know you've done the work, you don't need external approval. Your self-belief is grounded in evidence. You've seen what you're capable of when you commit. That knowledge stays with you, regardless of circumstances. Results also protect you from ego. When your focus is on the work, not the applause, you remain grounded. You respect the process. You understand that growth is ongoing. You don't become complacent because your confidence isn't tied to praise, it's tied to progress. As you focus on yourself and stay silent, your standards begin to rise. You become more selective about where you invest your time and energy. You stop chasing validation and start chasing alignment. The work becomes more intentional. The goals become clearer. The path becomes yours, not a response to external pressure. Over time, people begin to recognize something they can't quite explain. Your presence changes. Your decisions carry weight. Your calm stands out in a noisy world. That doesn't come from saying the right things. It comes from living them. When results lead, words follow naturally if they're needed at all. And often they aren't, because progress has already answered the questions. Growth has already told the story. Transformation has already introduced you. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you don't just change your future. You change how you move through the world. You become steady where others are reactive, clear where others are confused, grounded where others are chasing attention. And that's when something remarkable happens. You don't just arrive at a better version of your life. You become someone the future has been waiting for.